Welcome, dear listener, to LegendaryShleep. Tonight, we travel far back, beyond even the glory of ancient Rome, to the wild hills and shadowed woods of Latium. Here, long before emperors and marble temples, before the thunder of legionnaire boots, a pair of infants changed the course of civilization. Their names were Romulus and Remus, twins born of a god and a doomed princess. Their cradle was a riverbank, their first lullaby the wind among reeds, and their nursemaid a creature most unlikely, a wolf. But did this wolf truly exist? Could the feral, moon-eyed creature that suckled Rome's founders be more than just a symbol? Tonight, we unravel the mystery with gentle care, weaving through myth and memory, fact and fable. All you need to do is rest, listen, and wonder. If you enjoy these journeys through myth and mystery, do consider liking and subscribing, leaving a comment below sharing your thoughts or where in the world you are listening from. We'd love to know how far our stories reach. Chapter 1. The Kingdom of Alba Longa. It begins in the mists of Latium, in a realm not yet Rome. A city called Alba Longa stood proudly among the Alban hills, draped in early morning fog and perched along the edge of what is now Lake Albano. It was an ancient city even in the days of early myth, a city said to have been founded by Ascanius, the son of Aeneas, who fled Troy after its fall. Yes, even this story has roots that stretch back to Homeric dust and Trojan ash. Alba Longa was ruled by kings descended from Aeneas. Among them was Numitor, a wise and good-hearted man. But as it often goes in tales such as these, peace was short-lived. Numitor's brother, Amulius, seized the throne by treachery. He drove Numitor into exile and, fearing vengeance through Numitor's bloodline, forced Numitor's only daughter, Rhea Silvia, into the service of the goddess Vesta. To be a Vestal virgin was to be sacred, but also bound. She was never to marry, never to bear children. In Amulius's eyes, her vow was a cage he could count on. But fate, as myth reminds us, often finds cracks in cages. One quiet dawn, Rhea Silvia claimed she was visited by Mars himself, the god of war, a divine encounter that left her with child, twins. The stars, it is said, shivered that night, but with divine children come mortal dangers. When Amulius learned of the birth, his fury was absolute. No divine parentage would sway him. The twins posed a threat, not just to his rule, but to his very existence. They carried the blood of Numitor, a rightful king. They carried the spark of gods. And so, the order was given. The infants were to be taken from their mother and cast into the Tiber River. Let the waters claim them, Amulius said. Let the currents wash away prophecy and peril. A servant, trembling with sorrow, took the twins and placed them in a small woven basket. As the river swelled with spring rains, the basket bobbed and turned, carried gently away from the city walls. Yet the gods, it seems, were not so easily undone, for instead of drowning, the basket caught on the roots of a fig tree, sacred, ancient, and half submerged at the foot of the Palatine Hill. There, beneath the soft shade of fig leaves and the curious gaze of the forest, Romulus and Remus slept. And something was watching. In the hush of the wild, a wolf emerged. She was no ordinary creature. Her eyes were pools of midnight, her breath steamed in the cold morning air. She approached the basket not with hunger, but with instinct, the old sacred drive to care for the helpless. With surprising tenderness, she carried the infants to her den. There, in the dark warmth of stone and soil, the wolf nursed the boys. They suckled beside her own cubs, swaddled in fur and shadow. That den, legend says, was called the Lupercal, and to this day, the Palatine Hill stands as witness. The wolf was not alone for long. A shepherd named Faustulus, tending his flock nearby, noticed strange prints in the soil, paw prints too large for any wild dog. One morning, drawn by intuition or the whisper of the gods, he followed them. What he found would change the fate of the world. Chapter 2. Raised by Wolves and Men. Faustulus had lived many years by the rhythm of the earth, shearing in spring, watching stars in summer, harvesting in autumn, and bracing for the long hush of winter. Yet nothing in his long life had prepared him for what he saw in the wolf's den. There, in the flickering light that filtered between tangled vines and rocks, lay two infants nestled among a litter of cubs. The wolf did not growl, nor bare her fangs. Instead, she stood aside, as if she knew her part in something far greater. Her golden eyes met Faustulus's own. A silent moment passed. Then she turned and vanished into the forest. Faustulus knelt, heart thudding. The children were warm, alive. Twin boys with raven dark hair and fierce, alert expressions. He carried them home to his wife, Acca Larentia, a woman as wise as she was kind. She welcomed the boys without question. They named them Romulus and Remus, and raised them as their own. The boys grew fast and wild, chasing deer through whispering grasslands, leaping through olive groves, wrestling beneath cypress shadows. Though they had no knowledge of their royal lineage, something regal lingered in their bearing. They led games, resolved quarrels, and protected weaker boys from bullies. Even the older shepherds spoke of them with respect. By their teenage years, Romulus and Remus had become known not just among shepherds, but among nearby villagers as well. Their strength, cunning, and charisma drew attention, both welcome and dangerous. One spring morning, while defending their flock from a band of rustlers, Remus was captured by local soldiers. These men, loyal to Amulius, accused Remus of thievery and brought him before the king's men. He was dragged to Alba Longa in chains. Romulus, upon learning what had happened, was consumed with rage and fear. He ran to Faustulus, demanding answers. The old shepherd hesitated, then confessed the truth he and Acca Larentia had guarded for years. "You and your brother," Faustulus said gently, "are no sons of shepherds. You are sons of Rhea Silvia, grandsons of Numitor." The world tilted. The hills seemed to lean forward, listening. Romulus understood then why fate had always seemed to coil around him and his brother like ivy around a pillar. He would not let Remus fall into Amulius's hands. And so began the journey back to the city that had cast them out. Chapter 3. The Blood of Kings. Romulus left the quiet fields behind, his heart pounding with a rhythm he'd never felt before. The forests and hills that had once felt like home now seemed to whisper secrets he hadn't understood until now. With each step, he was walking into a destiny shaped by gods and betrayal. In Alba Longa, Remus sat in a holding cell of stone and silence. The halls of the royal city echoed faintly with the footsteps of guards, but within his chamber there was only the steady beat of his heart and the cold press of chains. He did not yet know the truth of his blood, but he sensed it in his bones. This place, this city, felt like a memory half remembered. Meanwhile, Faustulus, though old and wearied by years, made his way secretly to the exiled king, Numitor. The man who once ruled Alba Longa lived in quiet obscurity, a shadow within the kingdom he once led. Faustulus knelt before him and spoke the names of the twins. At first, Numitor dismissed it. Another fable, perhaps, another desperate hope. But as Faustulus told the tale, the river, the wolf, the den, Numitor began to tremble. When he heard the names Romulus and Remus, his eyes welled with something long buried, belief. That very night, Romulus reached the city. He was not a boy anymore. Though still young, he carried himself with the poise of one touched by divine fire. He did not sneak through the shadows, but walked straight to the gates of Numitor's home. The guards hesitated, drawn not by fear but by awe. They let him pass. Inside, grandfather and grandson met for the first time. No words were needed in that first moment. They saw it in each other, the same sharp cheekbones, the same set of the jaw, the same fire behind the eyes. Together, they hatched a plan. Remus would not die in chains, nor would Amulius reign another season. Within days, whispers began to stir within Alba Longa. The young man called Romulus walked boldly through the marketplace, rallying support not with gold or threat, but with story. He told of injustice, of his mother, locked in a cell, of Amulius's theft of the crown. The people listened. Some scoffed. Others remembered the goodness of Numitor and the shadow that fell when Amulius seized power. Old loyalties stirred. On the night of the full moon, Romulus and a growing band of loyalists stormed the royal palace. Blades flashed in the darkness, but few fell. Most guards laid down arms when they realized what was happening. Inside the throne room, Romulus found Amulius. The usurper's face went pale. There was no grand duel, no poetic fight. History often favors simplicity. Amulius was taken and brought before the people. The truth of his deeds, his crimes against Rhea Silvia, against Numitor, against the twins, was laid bare. The people chose, and Amulius fell. Numitor, old but not broken, was restored as king. Romulus and Remus stood by his side, no longer mere shepherds or myths, but princes reclaimed by fate. The city celebrated for 3 days. Fires lit the hills. Feasts lined the streets. But as laughter echoed through Alba Longa, the twins stood in quiet conversation beneath the stars. For though they had reclaimed their legacy, they felt the pull of something more. Not to rule a kingdom already shaped by others, but to build a city of their own, a place where destiny could begin anew. Chapter 4. Foundations of a New Beginning. The dawn broke softly over Alba Longa, its golden light spilling like honey over the ancient city walls. Yet, beneath the warm glow, Romulus and Remus felt the restless tug of a future unwritten. They had reclaimed their birthright, but the weight of the past did not quell the fires that burned within them. The city around them was steeped in history, yes, but also in old wounds and lingering loyalties. Neither brother wished merely to inherit a throne already claimed by generations. Their hearts beat for something new, something greater. It was during quiet moments in the shade of the trees, away from the noise of celebration, that the idea first began to form. They wanted a city of their own, built from the ground up, a place that could stand strong, remain free, and carry the mark of everything they had fought for. Together, Romulus and Remus set out to find the perfect spot, a land that would cradle their dreams and endure through the ages. They followed the winding path of the Tiber River, its waters moving steadily alongside them. As they travelled, they climbed mist-covered hills, with hawks gliding overhead and the smell of wild herbs drifting through the air. The brothers walked side by side, voices low with hope and plans yet unspoken. Finally, they stood upon a pair of hills facing each other, the future Palatine and Aventine. Here, the land was fertile, the river gentle, and the horizon wide enough to hold all their ambitions. But even as the promise of new beginnings stirred, the brothers knew the path ahead would not be easy. Choosing where to build was only the first step. For a city to thrive, it needed order, strength, and unity. And those qualities, they realized, would be tested, not just by the elements, but by their own bond. Romulus and Remus laid stones and dreams together, but shadows stirred. Rivalries born of pride, old grievances hidden beneath smiles, and the ever-present call of destiny awaited them. The story of Rome's founding was not just about land or walls. It was a tale of brothers, of conflict, of fate intertwined with choice. As twilight softened the sky, the first embers of their city's fire glowed faintly, promising a future born from myth, struggle, and the courage to start over. Chapter 5. The Struggle for the City. The morning sun lit up the hills they had chosen. The air was cool, carrying the smell of wet soil. Romulus and Remus stood on separate hilltops, looking out over the valley where they planned to build their city. But beneath the quiet dawn, a storm brewed, one born not from clouds or wind, but from the hearts of two brothers. Though bound by blood and shared destiny, Romulus and Remus found themselves pulled in different directions. Each saw the city's future through his own eyes, shaped by the fire of pride and the hunger for leadership. Romulus, with a measured gaze and calm determination, dreamed of a city ruled by law and strength, built on foundations of order and discipline. Remus, fiery and bold, believed in the power of openness and camaraderie, a city alive with the spirit of freedom and joy. Their visions, though not entirely opposed, clashed like thunder. Friends and followers gathered around each brother, their loyalties tested by whispers and promises. Days passed, the air thick with tension. The hills that would hold the city became a stage for silent rivalry and unspoken challenges. The wolves of legend had nurtured them, but now human passions threatened to rend the brothers apart. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, the brothers met between their hills. The ground beneath was soft with wildflowers, but the weight of their unspoken conflict pressed heavy. Romulus spoke first, voice steady but filled with the quiet authority of a leader born. Remus, this city needs order to survive. Without it, we are nothing but chaos. Remus's eyes flashed, the fire within refusing to be dimmed. And what is order without freedom, without laughter, without the life that makes a city more than stones and walls? The air seemed to still, the world holding its breath as two destinies wove tighter. It was then that a challenge was made, a test to decide the city's fate, to crown its future king. Not a battle of strength, but a contest of faith and divine favor, where the gods themselves would choose the ruler. The hills held their breath as Romulus and Remus agreed to wait until the next morning, to watch for the sign from above. What happened next would shape their bond and the very future of the city they dreamed of building. Chapter 6. The Sign in the Sky. At dawn, Romulus and Remus climbed to their chosen hills. The morning was calm, with only the sounds of birds and a gentle breeze. Both brothers stood quietly, watching the sky, waiting for a sign from the gods. They knew this sign would decide who would rule and name the city. Time passed slowly as eyes scanned the sky. Finally, 6 vultures appeared above Remus's hill. He called out to his followers, believing the gods had chosen him. His supporters cheered, confident in his victory. But moments later, 12 vultures appeared above Romulus's hill. The larger number caused his followers to claim the gods favored Romulus instead. Voices rose as people argued over which sign was more important, the first sighting or the greater number. The disagreement divided their followers into 2 groups. What was supposed to bring an end to their dispute instead made it worse. Neither brother was willing to accept defeat, and the tension between them grew stronger. Romulus began marking the boundaries of his city on the Palatine Hill. He worked to build walls and lay foundations, determined to make his vision real. Remus watched from a distance, his frustration growing. The challenge to the gods did not bring peace. Instead, it deepened the divide between the brothers and set the stage for the conflict to come. The future of the city and of Rome itself hung in the balance as the 2 brothers prepared for what would happen next. Chapter 7. The Shadow of Fate. The city was growing, its walls steadily rising under Romulus's watchful eye. But beneath this progress, tension quietly simmered. Romulus and Remus had once shared everything, their childhood, their struggles, their dreams. Now, their differences were pulling them apart. Romulus was determined to build a city fortified by strong walls, a place of order and safety. Remus, however, saw these walls as a challenge to freedom. Barriers born from fear and control, meant to be crossed and tested. One afternoon, as Romulus carefully laid stones along the new wall, Remus suddenly appeared. Without hesitation, he leapt over the low barriers that had just been raised. With a mocking smirk and a taunting glance, he challenged the fledgling walls and his brother's vision, showing everyone watching that these defenses were far from the unbreakable shield Romulus had hoped for. The gesture was pure defiance. Anger flashed in Romulus's eyes. The brothers faced each other, voices rising with tension. Their followers gathered nearby, sensing the storm about to break. What began as a heated argument quickly turned physical. They grappled fiercely, each trying to assert dominance, not just over the city, but over the future itself. Their fight was driven by years of rivalry and the heavy burden of their shared destiny. During the struggle, Romulus spotted a spade lying on the ground, left from the day's labor. In a moment of desperation and fury, he seized it. The spade struck Remus's head suddenly and with great force. He faltered, his strength fading away, and then collapsed to the ground. A heavy silence settled over the crowd like a dark cloud. In that moment, time seemed to slow for Romulus. He watched in stunned horror as his brother fell, a cold wave of shock washing over him. Fueled by anger and desperation, a terrible mistake had been made. The brother he had grown up with, the companion of his youth and rival of his manhood, now lay motionless because of Romulus's own hand. Romulus's heart was crushed beneath a weight of sorrow. He had never intended to kill his brother, but in the heat of their struggle, the fragile line between rivalry and tragedy was crossed. Around them, the silence shattered. The followers of the two brothers erupted into conflict. The disagreement over the city's location, already a source of tension, now ignited into a fierce battle for loyalty and power. Remus's supporters, enraged and mourning, sought vengeance for their fallen leader. Romulus's followers, steadfast and resolute, rallied to defend their chosen ruler. The clash was fierce and chaotic, mirroring the turmoil roiling inside every heart present. But in the end, Romulus and his followers prevailed. Their victory secured Romulus's position as the leader of the new city, a city that would come to be known as Roma. Yet the cost was grave. Romulus carried the weight of his brother's death deeply, knowing the city's foundation was built not just on ambition, but on sacrifice and sorrow. To honor Remus and the bond they had once shared, Romulus named the city Roma, a lasting reminder that even the greatest beginnings often come shadowed by loss. It was a beginning forged in fire and tears, a legacy destined to echo through the ages. Chapter 8. Legacy Beneath the Stars. The city of Rome now stood proud on the Palatine Hill, its walls a testament to strength and determination. Yet beneath its stones and streets lay the whispers of a story, of two brothers, a wolf, and a destiny woven from love, loss, and hope. Romulus, alone but unbroken, carried the weight of the city and the memory of Remus deep within his heart. In his quiet moments, he would look toward the stars, imagining his brother among them, a guardian watching over the city they had dreamed of together. The wolf's howl carried on the night wind seemed to echo in the hearts of Rome's people, a reminder of their wild beginnings and the fierce spirit that still lived within them. Rome grew, not just in size but in legend. Its streets would one day bustle with voices from all corners of the world. Empires would rise and fall, but the tale of Romulus and Remus would remain, a beacon of courage and the complexities of brotherhood. Let their story remind you of the power of beginnings, how even in the face of hardship, hope can take root. Rest now, dear listener. Let the gentle rhythms of this ancient myth lull you toward peaceful dreams. May the wolf's watchful spirit guard you through the night, and may the stars above inspire you with the promise of new dawns. Thank you for joining me on this journey through time and tale. If this story stirred something within you, please like and subscribe. And do leave a comment to share your opinion or where in the world you're listening from. Until we meet again, I wish you a legendary sleep.